Villisca Axe Murders, a century-old mystery that still haunts us. In the quiet town of Villisca, Iowa, a century-old mystery continues to cast a long shadow over its residents. On the night of June 9, 1912, an unthinkable tragedy unfolded within the walls of a modest white frame house. 8 souls, peacefully slumbering, met a violent end that would shock the nation and spawn countless theories, investigations, and whispered conversations for generations to come. The Villisca Axe Murders remain one of America's most chilling unsolved crimes, a brutal act that tore apart a community and left an indelible mark on the landscape of true crime history. As we delve into the details of this haunting case, we'll explore the events of that fateful night, the subsequent investigation, and the theories that have emerged over the past century. A peaceful town shattered. Villisca, derived from the Native American word meaning pleasant view, was a thriving railroad town of about 2,500 people in the early 20th century. Known for its strong sense of community and wholesome Midwestern values, it was the last place anyone would expect such a horrific crime to occur. The Moore family was well respected in Villisca. Josiah Moore, a successful businessman, his wife Sarah, and their 4 children, Herman, 11, Catherine, 10, Boyd, 7, and Paul, 5, were pillars of the local community. On the evening of June 9th, they attended a Children's Day program at the Presbyterian Church, where Sarah Moore was a dedicated member. Joining them at the event were Ina, 8, and Lena, just 12, Stillinger, daughters of Joseph and Sarah Stillinger, who lived on a farm outside of town. The girls were invited to spend the night at the Moore residence, a sleepover that would tragically be their last, the night of terror. As the town settled into a peaceful slumber, an unspeakable evil crept through the shadows. Sometime between midnight and 5 a.m. on June 10th, an unknown assailant entered the Moore home, armed with an axe belonging to Josiah Moore. Moving silently through the house, the killer methodically took the lives of all 8 occupants. Each victim was struck multiple times in the head with the blunt end of the axe, their faces covered with bedclothes after the brutal attack. The careful positioning of the bodies and covering of the faces would later become a point of intense speculation among investigators and true crime enthusiasts. The discovery. On the morning of June 10th, Mary Peckham, the Moore's neighbor, noticed something amiss. The typically bustling household was eerily quiet, with no sign of the family going about their usual morning routine. Concerned, she knocked on the door, but received no answer. After attempting to peer through the windows and finding them covered, Peckham called Josiah Moore's brother, Ross Moore. Ross arrived and, using his spare key, entered the house. What he found inside would haunt him for the rest of his life. In the downstairs guest bedroom, he discovered the bodies of Ina and Lena Stillinger. Overwhelmed by the gruesome scene, Ross fled the house and contacted Hank Horton, Villisca's primary peace officer. Horton arrived quickly and made his way through the house, uncovering the full extent of the tragedy. In the upstairs bedrooms, he found the bodies of Josiah and Sarah Moore, along with their 4 children. The axe, wiped clean of fingerprints, was left leaning against a wall in the downstairs bedroom where the Stillinger girls were found. A community in shock, news of the murders spread like wildfire through Villisca. The peaceful town was plunged into a state of shock and fear. Neighbors who had always felt safe leaving their doors unlocked now double-checked their locks and peered anxiously out of windows at every unfamiliar sound. As word of the crime reached beyond Villisca, curiosity seekers and journalists descended upon the town. The Moore house became a macabre tourist attraction, with some even taking souvenirs from the crime scene before authorities could secure it properly. This contamination of evidence would later prove to be a significant hindrance to the investigation. The investigation begins. The initial investigation was plagued by missteps and inexperience. In 1912, forensic science was in its infancy, and small-town law enforcement was ill-equipped to handle a crime of this magnitude. The crime scene was not immediately secured, allowing countless people to traipse through the house, potentially destroying crucial evidence. Despite these setbacks, investigators did their best to piece together the events of that night. They noted several strange details. 1. All of the mirrors in the house were covered with clothing. 2. A bowl of bloody water was found in the kitchen, suggesting the killer had washed up after the murders. 3. A plate of uneaten food sat on the kitchen table, along with a piece of keyhole sawed from the front door. 4. 2 cigarette butts were found in the attic, indicating the killer may have hidden there before or after the murders. These peculiar findings would fuel speculation and theories for years to come. Suspects and theories. As the investigation progressed, several suspects emerged, each with their own set of circumstantial evidence and possible motives. Let's explore some of the most prominent theories. 1. Frank F. Jones. Frank F. Jones was a prominent Villisca businessman and former Iowa state senator. Josiah Moore had previously worked for Jones, but left to start his own implement business, becoming a successful competitor. Some theorize that Jones may have hired a hitman to eliminate his rival. However, Jones had a solid alibi for the night of the murders, and no concrete evidence ever linked him to the crime. 2. William Mansfield. Mansfield was a cocaine-addicted serial killer suspect. Some investigators believed he was responsible for similar axe murders in Colorado, Illinois, and Kansas. Detective James Wilkerson, hired by Frank Jones's son, was convinced of Mansfield's guilt. In 1916, Wilkerson managed to have Mansfield arrested and brought to Montgomery County, Iowa, for a grand jury hearing. However, Mansfield produced payroll records proving he was in Illinois at the time of the Villisca murders, and the case against him was dismissed. 3. Henry Lee Moore. No relation to the victims. Henry Lee Moore was a suspected serial killer who committed similar axe murders across the Midwest. He was convicted of murdering his mother and grandmother in Missouri with an axe in December 1912. While the similarity in modus operandi was striking, no direct evidence tied him to the Villisca murders. 4. Reverend Lynn George Jacqueline Kelly. Perhaps the most intriguing suspect was Reverend Kelly, a traveling preacher with a history of mental illness. Kelly had been in Villisca on the day of the murders and attended the same Children's Day program as the Moore family. Kelly's behavior after the murders raised suspicions. He sent strange letters to local officials and seemed to have an unhealthy obsession with the case. In 1917, he was arrested and tried for the murders, but the jury was deadlocked, resulting in a mistrial. A second trial in 1918 ended with Kelly's acquittal. The occult connection. One of the more sensational theories surrounding the Villisca Axe murders involves occult practices. Some researchers have pointed to the careful positioning of the bodies and the covering of the victims' faces as evidence of a ritualistic killing. This theory gained traction in the 1980s when paranormal investigators began to take an interest in the case. They noted that June 9, 1912 was the night of a new moon, a time often associated with dark magic practices. However, no concrete evidence has ever been found to support this theory, and many dismiss it as speculation fueled by the case's mysterious nature. The drifter theory. Another popular theory suggests that the killer may have been a transient who rode the rails into town, committed the murders, and then disappeared. This theory is supported by the fact that several similar axe murders occurred in the Midwest around the same time, possibly committed by the same person moving from town to town. The presence of cigarette butts in the attic also lends some credence to this theory, as it suggests someone may have hidden in the house before the murders. However, like many aspects of this case, the drifter theory remains speculative. The lasting impact. The Villisca Axe murders left an indelible mark on the small Iowa town and the nation as a whole. The crime changed Villisca forever, shattering its sense of security and innocence. Many residents left town in the aftermath, unable to shake the fear that gripped the community. The case also had a significant impact on law enforcement practices. The mishandling of the crime scene and the subsequent investigation led to calls for more professional and scientifically rigorous approaches to criminal investigations. Today, the Moore House stands as a silent witness to the tragedy that unfolded within its walls. Restored to its 1912 appearance, it has become a museum and a popular destination for ghost hunters and true crime enthusiasts. Many visitors report strange occurrences and an overwhelming sense of sadness and unease in the house. The Villisca Axe murders continue to captivate the public imagination, spawning books, documentaries, and countless online discussions. The case serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most idyllic communities. Unsolved but not forgotten. As we approach the 110th anniversary of the Villisca Axe Murders, the case remains officially unsolved. The passage of time has made it increasingly unlikely that we will ever know the true identity of the killer or killers responsible for this heinous act. Yet the story of the Villisca Axe Murders refuses to fade into obscurity. It continues to intrigue and horrify new generations of true crime enthusiasts, serving as a stark reminder of a time when small-town America lost its innocence. The unanswered questions surrounding the case. Who was the killer? What was their motive? How did they manage to commit such a brutal act without waking any of the victims? Continue to fuel speculation and debate. In the end, perhaps the most chilling aspect of the Villisca Axe Murders is not the brutality of the crime itself, but the possibility that the perpetrator walked free, potentially to kill again. It's a sobering thought that underscores the importance of justice and closure in violent crimes. As we reflect on this century-old mystery, we're reminded of the fragility of life and the enduring human need for answers and understanding in the face of senseless violence. The Villisca Axe Murders may remain unsolved, but they will never be forgotten, serving as a haunting chapter in the annals of American true crime history.